Hey, today we're here in my YouTube studio, which is actually quite small, but I set it up in a way that allows me to capture multiple angles here. So I can get a shot here at my desk or here on my sofa, either like this or like that to make it a little bit more chill. Or I can get a shot here at my standing desk, and this is also the place where I shoot all my product B-roll. And of course, I can also change the angle here by putting the camera on the desk with a gorilla pod and a wide angle lens to give it a bit more vlog style. Now, the reason why I set my YouTube studio up like that is simply that it makes my videos more interesting to watch if I can change the camera angle more often during the video. So having a YouTube studio set up that allows you to get such angles easily is definitely an advantage. And in this video I show you how I set everything up here and also what gear and tools I use to make my videos look and sound good. Okay, I would say let's start with a little studio tour here, and as you can see it is actually quite small here. Like here's the entrance area where I can't really do much because it's like a small corner, but now if we go into the main studio, see it's a pretty small room, but I set up the room in a way that I can get a lot of shots here, both for A-roll and also product B-roll. So at first what I did here is I made this gap here in the middle of the room so that I can position my camera and my light freely here. As you can see, I have my desk here, so I can position the light as it is right now. If I want to get a desk shot, then I would usually use my tripod here and I can perfectly film myself. Then I can also use this gap here to do the same with the sofa. So here it's like easy as well. I can just pick up the light and set it on the side of the sofa and then put the camera either here and adjust the height, or I can put it here. That makes it very convenient. And the same counts here for that standing desk. Can also just stand here, put the light there, put the camera there, and I get a nice shot. And also I can just put the camera on the standing desk if I want to get a total of the room behind me. So overall that allows me to capture all these different angles of the room, even if it's quite small. And having a small room for your YouTube studio is actually a good idea because it makes it easier to soundproof it. Like right now you can actually hear quite a bit of room tone here, but usually when I have all the curtains closed, then you can't hear that anymore. The room actually sounds pretty good then. And before I had a bigger room, and there, no matter what I did, you could always hear a bit of room tone there. I actually ended up using a dynamic mic very close to my mouth to get rid of that. So that makes it very complicated, but if you have a small room, it's usually enough to just put a sofa here, put some, carpets here, and then also some curtains or whatever you want to get rid of room tone against the walls, and that is usually enough. In a bigger room that's obviously a bit harder to do because the sofa doesn't do that much of soundproofing, and also you need more carpets, etc. So I actually prefer a small room for soundproofing. So let's also talk quickly about what I use everything for. So here's obviously my desk to get work done, but from a filmmaking perspective I also use it as my main angle, my main camera angle here to get shots when I talk about video editing, etc. Then my sofa, it's good for like having the camera straight in front of me when I want to talk a bit more like serious stuff, etc. While when I sit here, it's like a bit more relaxed, like it should feel like I'm sitting on the sofa with a friend and we're talking. So I like that. Then here, the standing desk, obviously nice if I want to work a bit on my MacBook and I just want to stand a bit. I sit too much and I feel like I have to stand. But also I use it as my B-roll station. So here you see I have these black sheets here, and I just put one sheet against the wall and keep one on the table to get my product B-roll shots. It's not an ideal setup though. You can definitely see it. The background is not perfectly black. It's not an ideal setup, but it looks good enough for me to get all the product B-roll shots for my YouTube studio, and it keeps it quite small. We'll also talk about the sliders later. They are amazing. Then I also have my battery station here. Like here I charge all my batteries. I have all my chargers here and all the plugs that I need for it, and also some stuff that I need oftentimes, like here my Atomos Ninja V, which is like one of the best investments I've ever did. then a teleprompter, and also my other light here will also come later to that. Okay, so much for a basic overview here, but let's talk about how I use everything to achieve a great look. And the most important thing here is really lighting. So the first thing that I do regarding lighting is to close all the curtains to really darken the room as much as possible, because I want to be in control over my light. And if I use the windows for recording my videos, then the light always changes. Sometimes it's a bit brighter, sometimes it's darker. The white balance changes as well. So by using a light like that here, I get full control. And the light that I'm using is the Ambitful FL80, which I really love. To be honest, they sent it to me for free, but they sent it for free because I asked them, because I saw this light at a friend's home before, Roma. He also is a YouTuber, and I really love this light. He also said that he liked it a lot more than his Godox SL60, for example. I had the Godox ML60 before, which is also a very good light, but this one is even brighter. It's also super color accurate, and it also comes at a pretty cheap price if you want to buy it. It's around $250. And for this price, it comes in a set with this one here, the Ambitful 60cm softbox, which, to be honest, for a desk setup like that is perfectly fine. You don't need more. The reason why I use this Godox 70cm softbox here is that I sometimes also want to get shots on my sofa and somewhere else, and there it just looks a bit better, especially if the light is farther away, if I have a bigger light source. But here on the desk, for example, when the light is close to your face, then these 60cm softboxes are perfectly fine. So this is definitely a set on Amazon that I can recommend, that is on the cheaper side of all these more professional lights, and it gives you really good results. And also for light, always get a light with a honeycomb grid. That's that black part here. That's important because it makes your light directional. Otherwise it spills everywhere in your room, and that's especially a problem in small rooms like that one here. Then all the light spills back on your face. You might get weird colors depending on what stands around you. And you also don't have control over how your background looks. Like sometimes you want to have a dark background and you want to have the light only on your face, and this honeycomb grip makes it a lot easier. And sometimes one side of my face might be a bit too dark when I use only one light. So in that case I also use a small light like that here. It's the Ambitful A1 as a fill light. I just place it a bit farther away from me just to lit up my face a little bit. And the A1 is also really nice, color accurate, bright, etc. And it comes with a lot of effects. One effect is fire, which I actually love, because I one time did a shot only at a campfire, only with campfire light, and it was so complicated to do. Like we always had to put more wood on it to keep the fire burning, etc. It was really hard. So with a light like that that has a fire effect, I would not use only a campfire. I would just use this light instead. It makes it so much easier. And let's also quickly talk a bit more about sound. I mean, I mentioned already that you have to sound treat your room, but basically the most important thing is that you have some soft stuff around you. Like here, curtains are perfect, but in my old room, for example, in my old studio, I put some blankets against the walls, and I used these hooks here. They are from 3M. I always rent my houses, so I don't want to damage the walls, and these 3M hooks, they are perfect for that, because you can remove them from the walls without damaging them. So that's what I used to put blankets on the walls in my old studio. So it's a little tip: if you have a room where you don't have curtains or so, it's a bit more complicated, just use those hooks and put some blankets there, and then the soundproofing is also a lot better. And what's also important to get good audio, of course, is the microphone. I use the Rode VideoMic NT-G for all of my indoor shots here. I always do it that I boom it on my head. So that's the setup that I usually use. Like I bring the microphone as close as possible to my mouth, but slightly out of frame. And I take the pop filter off because it muffles the audio a little bit. With the Rode VideoMic NT-G, it sounds really good. What you can generally remember from here is that you always want to put the microphone as close to your mouth as possible, because that gives you the best audio. The farther it is away, the more room tone and background noise, etc. you can hear. So bring it close to your mouth, it will always sound better. Okay, so much about lighting and audio, but there's also another important part or tool that I use for creating my videos, and these are camera sliders. Like I have the Slidepod E, Slidepod Pro, and the Gpon Micro 2 Plus here, which are a bit different. I'm doing a comparison video of the Slidepod Pro and the Slidepod E right now, which will come out next week, so definitely watch that if you're interested in the slide pod. But generally I prefer the slide pods because, as you can see, like they are very easy to carry around. Like I can actually put them in the side of my bag, which is great, and they also allow for more shots because when you put the camera in the front and you film forward with a wide angle lens, you can't see the camera slider, and that makes more shots possible. While with this slider, the Jeepon, when I put the camera here with a wide angle lens and I slide forward or backward, you would be able to see the slider. On the opposite side, there's also an advantage to the Jeepon slider because it comes with legs included, and that's great because you can just put the slider everywhere on a table, or when you're outside you want to shoot a time lapse or so, you can put it on the ground and you can quickly get your shot. While with these slide pods you usually need to use a tripod for it, but it's actually not much of a problem because it comes with Arca-Swiss plates here, so you can mount it directly. So generally, if you want to go out a lot and shoot time lapses out in nature, you want to be close to the ground, etc., then the Micro 2 Plus is the better option. But for me, like most of my shots are better with the slide pods because they're a bit quicker to set up in my case, and they also allow for more shots. So that's great. Watch the review video next week, then you will learn a bit more about those sliders. And important in my studio is also my desk setup. As you can see, it's actually quite minimalistic here. I want to have a clean desk. I don't want to have too much stuff on my desk, and that's actually the reason why I got the new iMac M1. The M1 chips, as we all know, they are super fast for video editing. And also, before I had a monitor, I had my MacBook Air, and then I had a Thunderbolt 3 hub, I had a soundbox standing on my desk, so lots of cables everywhere, and the iMac replaced it. Like there's literally only one cable from my iMac, one from my light, can't prevent that. The soundboxes are included. I also don't need a USB hub anymore because 4 USB-C ports are enough for me. I only use USB-C. I'm not using USB Type A anymore, and I don't want that. It's old and it sucks. I want to have fast ports, and USB-C has that. It's also smaller. And another tool that I use for video editing is Torbox. This is a nice tool that kind of replaces the keyboard a bit. Like usually for shortcuts in Final Cut Pro and other video editors, you need to press multiple keys at the same time. But here with Torbox, you can map all of those to single buttons. It also has scroll wheels, etc., to like skip quickly through the timeline. And that really improves or speeds up the editing workflow a bit. There are more expensive tools like that on the market from Loopdeck and Blackmagic, etc., which are good, but they are more expensive. So that's definitely recommended, especially because it comes at such a cheap price compared to their competitors. Yeah, so much about my desk and video editing setup here, but there are a few more tools that I use to shoot my videos here, so let's have a look at them as well. Okay, so other gear that I use is at first this lens here, the Samyang AF 35mm f1.8 for Sony, which is a super cheap lens, but I love it for my studio shots here because 35mm is quite wide, but it's not like super wide, it's not distorted or so. It's actually a good portrait lens on the wider side. And at f1.8 it is very good for low light, and it blurs the background out a lot, so it has a great look to it. And well, cheap lens, so even as a beginner you can afford this lens. Then probably the best investments I have ever made is the Atomos Ninja V. It's not just a monitor for cameras, it is also a recorder. So here's an SSD drive at the back, and that's great because at first, because of the monitor, I see myself better when I record myself. But then I can also directly record to the SSD, and I have this cable here for it. So I can just connect this cable and connect it directly to my computer and edit on the SSD drive, or I can copy the files much faster as I could from an SD card. The Atomos Ninja V also allows you to shoot 10-bit on many cameras, and you can get around the 30-minute limitations that you also get on many cameras. So great investment overall. Then I also use macro tubes a lot to get macro shots of my products. So they are very cheap, they cost like $20–25 or something like that, and it makes product shots so much more interesting because you can go really close before you reveal the final product. So it's kind of storytelling in product photography. So just get one of those for your lenses. You can just screw them behind your lens, like between the lens and the camera body, and then you get your macro shots. Then I also use these filters here from Nisi. These are mist filters and not ND filters. I like them here in my studio because I usually don't need ND filters in my studio, but these filters here, they give me this nice soft glow effect in the highlights, and I could also achieve this effect with my Freewell variable ND filters that I'm using right now, but I'm limited to one strength with these, and sometimes it's a bit too strong in my opinion. So that's why I like that here, like in this set I have a mist filter 1/8, then I have a 1/4 and 1/2 mist filter there, so that gives me more options. And I especially like these filters and setups like that here, where when the light is coming from the window, then I want to soften the light a bit. It just gives a nicer look. So it's not a must-have, but it is great if you want to get this soft glow effect in the highlights. So these are like the tools that I use, but then what's also great is a second camera, because you can place it somewhere else in your room to capture a second angle while you're talking, and that at first makes jump cuts less obvious because you can cut between both camera angles, and it's also more interesting to watch then. But of course, it's not necessary at the beginning when you're just starting out. It's perfectly fine to invest in all of that stuff later. Like if you're starting out building a YouTube studio, I would say the most important things is, beside your camera, the light at first. Definitely the light to create an awesome look is much more important than your camera. It's perfectly fine to start out with a Canon M50 or a Sony ZV-E10 or something like that, even a ZV-1. As long as your light is good, your image will look good. So definitely invest in light like that one here from Ambitful. And then what's also important is your audio. Definitely Rode VideoMic NTG is one of the best microphones that you can buy because it's so versatile. You can use it as a podcasting microphone, on-camera shotgun microphone, or as a boom mic like here. So that makes it so great. It is a bit more expensive at around $250, but you will keep it for a very long time. You can easily use it for 10 years or so. These microphones usually don't break. And then after that, you can go from your kit lens to a lens like that. It is a bit cheaper as well. Just get a proper prime lens with a low f-stop, and it's a bit wider, like 35 or 24 millimeters, something like that. All of the other stuff, it's not necessary to get started. It's just something that makes your videos and your workflow a bit better. So if you're just starting out building your YouTube studio, focus on the important things first, and then you can build up from that. So these are all the tools that I use in my YouTube studio and how I set it up to make my videos interesting. I hope you got some good ideas for your own YouTube studio, and if it was helpful, then please leave me a thumbs up. And also on this channel, I do videography tutorials that could be interesting for you, so consider subscribing if that sounds cool. See you next week.